It was supposed to be a simple weekend escape, a break from the noise of the city. Mia, Alex, Sarah, and Jason had heard stories about the quiet, secluded cabin in the woods, just far enough from civilization to feel like a true getaway. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an unnatural shadow over the trees. Laughter slowly faded as the weight of silence pressed down on them, and the forest seemed to close in. Each turn of the road grew darker, as if guiding them into the unknown. Let's begin this interesting story. The night was colder than usual, with a heavy fog blanketing the trees in the middle of nowhere. Mia and her friends, Alex, Sarah, and Jason, were driving to a remote cabin deep in the forest for a weekend getaway. They laughed and talked, unaware of the shadows lurking in the trees. The cabin stood alone in the middle of the woods, its wooden structure weathered and worn. As they pulled up, the silence of the forest enveloped them. They could hear nothing but the soft rustling of leaves, but it felt as if eyes were watching them. As they stepped inside, Mia noticed an old family portrait on the wall. The people in the painting looked strange, their faces blurred and eyes hollow. An unsettling feeling crept over her, but she brushed it off, blaming it on the cabin's age and isolation. That night, after they settled in, they sat around the fireplace, sharing stories. The flickering flames cast shadows around the room, and each shadow seemed to move independently, as though alive. Later, Mia decided to go to bed, exhausted from the journey. As she lay there, she heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Thinking it was one of her friends, she ignored it. But then the footsteps stopped right outside her door. Mia slowly sat up, her heart pounding. She held her breath, listening, but all she could hear was silence. Just as she was about to lie back down, the footsteps started again, this time heading away from her door. The next morning, Mia asked her friends if anyone had been outside her room, but they all denied it. As they exchanged nervous glances, Sarah noticed a series of muddy footprints leading from the hallway to the front door. They decided to go hiking that day to clear their minds. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they felt the weight of silence growing around them. The trees towered overhead, creating a dense canopy that blocked out the sunlight. Suddenly, they came across an abandoned cabin, much older than the one they were staying in. Its walls were covered in moss, and its windows shattered. There was an aura of dread around it, as if something unspeakable had happened there. Curiosity got the better of them, and they cautiously stepped inside. The air was thick with dust, and the floor creaked under their feet. In one corner, they found strange symbols carved into the walls. Symbols none of them recognized. That night, Mia couldn't sleep. She kept hearing whispers in the dark, soft and barely audible, as though someone was speaking right next to her. She shut her eyes tight, trying to ignore it, but the whispers grew louder. Suddenly, she felt a cold hand touch her shoulder. She screamed and turned on the light, but there was no one there. Her friends rushed in, but Mia was left shaken, convinced that something was in the cabin with them. Jason, trying to calm everyone down, suggested they leave first thing in the morning. But as they packed, they noticed all their car tires had been slashed, trapping them in the woods. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. The walls seemed to pulse, and shadows moved with a life of their own. Mia felt the presence growing stronger, and she knew they were no longer alone. As the clock struck midnight, a loud bang echoed through the cabin, and the front door burst open. A dark figure stood in the doorway, its face hidden in shadow, watching them with eyes that seemed to glow. The figure stepped closer, and they could see its face, distorted, hollow, like the people in the portrait. They ran, fleeing into the forest, but the figure followed, gliding silently through the trees. Just as they thought they'd lost it, Mia tripped, falling hard to the ground. She looked up to see the figure standing over her, its cold, empty eyes staring down. She screamed, but no one was there to hear. By morning, only a single shoe and torn pieces of clothing were found by the rangers. No trace of Mia, her friends, or the shadow in the woods was ever discovered. Some say the woods are haunted, others think it's just a legend, but those who venture too deep never seem to return. So next time you hear whispers in the dark, listen carefully. They might just be trying to warn you. Thanks for watching, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for more new videos.